Good morning, guys. What's up? How we doing? I tried to fix my overlay today so you can see a bit more of my screen. Hopefully that works today. Let me know if it looks a bit better. Let's get into the charts. Does the overlay look better today? Can you guys see more of my screen? What's up? Good morning. Good morning. Okay, let's look at the chart. So on the higher time frame, right, I'm pretty bullish. We have this weekly external range high. So we're delivering off of these lows down here with the divergence in the market, right? You can see price came in. We had this higher time frame divergence. Okay, so we're delivering off these lows. We're in a weekly expansion candle here. We've created the wick. This intra-week candle has reversed. So I'm looking at the daily chart here. The other side of the range now is here. We're diverging here at the lows, okay? And the other side of the range is up here, okay? All-time highs. And you can see YM is in closest proximity. We have failure swings on our NASDAQ and ES, right? Towards that on the daily chart, these highs. Okay. So now what I'm waiting for is to trade this. And you can see intra-week here. If you look at the weekly open, let's mark out our daily open first of all. So we look at our weekly open right here on Monday. Right here. Okay. Notice how we've expanded away from our weekly open here on the Dow, whereas ES has this stacked open, right? We're utilizing the weekly open as support right now, but we're kind of trading in context of it. This shows me that this low is likely a better low to trade away from on this weekly candle for YM. Now, as you can see, Monday opens, we trade lower into a key level. That key level here is very clearly this imbalance on the daily, right? So if we look at this, you can see we step into this imbalance on Monday with that opposing run. Okay. Come into this imbalance, and then we form a divergence of the Monday low on Tuesday, right? So look, we have this divergence that forms inside of this imbalance, okay, on the daily chart. This forms a low of the week, and we expand away from there. Like this. So now I can trade away from this opposing candle. I'm expecting the weekly open there to hold as some support, right? So Monday is the opposing run for the week. I'm seeing Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm expecting to see Thursday expansion as well. This is a classic expansion week, okay? You can see ES comes into that weekly open again in the overnight session, and that's where we get this reaction higher from. Yeah. So now we have the context of this daily candle that we're looking at. You can get rid of these higher time frame change states of delivery, right? These opposing candles. So we know what we're looking at the daily chart now, essentially, right? You can see that we're bullish. So now we go down and we're looking at this candle and we're saying, okay, where inside of this candle can we find support from, right? We're inside of this range, essentially. We look at the range of this one single candle. Inside the range of this one candle, I want to look at gaps near the open. So I'm looking at this range. I'm expecting that 50% is going to hold as support. The very most for a retracement, but also any gaps near the open, specifically in the upper 25%, I care about. So any gaps up in here I care about? Well, you can see in here, there's one clear level, which I want to see the market trade into now. It's going to be this inefficiency, right? Now, if you look at this daily candle, we've already come in and priced this low on NASDAQ and the S&P. We failed to do so here on the YM. So what I'm thinking is that on the open, we can come in. We can create some sort of divergence at that low, which will look something like this. So we'll have a two-stage SMT forming. Price will do something like this on the open. Okay. And I can trade away from that then. And I can trade this towards that weekly high, right? Or in this case, I can trade it towards the failure swings here on the NASDAQ, right? These are all failure swings. So what I'm going to wait for is for price to come back below this fair value gap to engage the market long on open, which would give me a two-stage SMT to trade away from. Right, if I profiled this daily candle a bit more, I can see here that this 6-hour low in here is a very good low on NASDAQ. It's a precision swing point, right? Into the previous day's equilibrium. Like if I look at the previous day's range from low to high, right? We come into this previous day's candle and then we form a reversal, a swing point. And you can see that with this 3 drives on the 4-hour chart as well. Okay. So I can trade away from this low. I can look at any sort of gaps that exist in this leg as a continuation. You can see this hourly candle here opens with no wick, and now it's going to be closing quite strong. If the open gives us a manipulation like this, you'll see something like this, right? So there's going to be some sort of gap in here as a continuation on the 30-minute or the 50-minute chart, which I want to trade. It's going to be the 50-minute for the open, right? So as YM manipulates this 4-hour low, I'm going to see if NASDAQ can print a gap, or the S&P can print a gap inside of here, and we can trade away from that gap. So I want to see this gap printed for the equities open like this, while YM trades into this low. YM will guarantee trade into this gap before we go higher, yes. I wouldn't trade long unless YM came into this low. You can see YM here is consolidating, that's why. YM is consolidating here. Right? We have this relevant level. It's also the relevant order paired level for the day. You wouldn't want to trade the market long unless YM offered a retracement into this gap. So the open, we should see eventually this gap get traded into. Right? And if not, if we expand away from it, if all markets expand away, then we'll trade a continuation, right? Once we have a confirmation that these relative equal lows are not going to be taken on YM. But right now, if I'm looking at this chart, right, I'm saying, okay, I want to order pair these levels. I also don't want to trade away from this failure swing necessarily, especially because we're just consolidating here. We're just consolidating here, right? Open should provide some sort of clarity, and realistically, there's no way I want to trade away from this signature anyways. Yeah, look at this. Look at this. Look at the daily open here. We're just consolidating around the daily open. So I'm gonna wait until price leaves here regardless, and gives me a new gap higher if we're gonna leave these lows. I want to see YM eventually become the stronger asset though. So if it does leave this gap and we form a new SMT at these lows here, it's also something you can consider. Okay, same idea goes for NASDAQ here. We're just consolidating. So this is not a signature I want to trade expansion away from. We get a double purge of this slowdown here, which will be a new 4-hour SMT, right? That's also possible. So we're seeing NASDAQ and YM, right? Decouple for the open. It's pretty common actually to see this. I want to see if this gap is respected on these two assets, this internal range of liquidity. This is nice. If we expand away and we create a new 4-hour low here, then we could create some sort of internal range here on the YM, respect that, and use the same logic to trade away from that, right? Here's my higher time frame draw for YM. So you can see we're starting to get some expansion towards that, but you can see these decoupled markets, right? Need to wait for this asset to reverse off the low, while this asset provides some sort of continuation signature, or we could see this as a manipulation of the high and then trade lower. Again, you can see all these lows here are pretty tough to trade away from, right? Look at NASDAQ on the open. This is why I typically wait until after the open. You get a lot of these strength switches that occur. Market tends to show its hand more directionally. That's why I avoid positional entries before equities open. So I want to see if a wick starts to form here on the NASDAQ, which indicate a reversal potentially, right? Which is also that two stage, right? You can see if a wick starts to form here, it's nice. This here is that previous 4-hour low. This black line I'm marking out, okay? It's the London lows. So right now we just see YM manipulating this range high. Again, we're still consolidating. We still have all of these equal lows down here. So you like to see a wick formation here on NASDAQ. If we're going to trade higher, this would need to reverse the strongest on NASDAQ. And while we see this wick form on NASDAQ here below this 4-hour low, what we'd want to see on YM is a support of this internal range of liquidity from the expansion, right? So you can see, if we want to see YM trade away from this gap and leave it as an SMT fill, we would need to see that this expansion, right? Any gaps in here are going to be supported while this wick forms. So look at this 15-minute candle here, right? This wick forms in here, maybe in this gap. You can see we have SMT at this range low. We need to see YM support price inside of this. You can see deep retracement here currently. So I don't know if this is going to actually support or it's going to flip and then go for these lows and this low, right? That's more likely to me. You're coming into this EQ of this range here. So here's where you want to see that wick form on NASDAQ. So this here, right? If I can see something like this form, say NASDAQ forms this wick here, right? YM already has SMT at this low. And we're watching any sort of gaps inside of this leg. It looks more likely that the YM just traded like from external to external here and manipulated both sides of this range, right? If we took out this data high or this 4 p.m. high here, right? Previous day high, and that could be a trigger. Look at the daily chart. We finally manipulate that previous day high here. We'll see if price wants to now come internal. I do like ES, how it's forming this wick inside of the gap with SMT, right? Here's an idea on ES I actually really do like. You can see on the higher time frame, we have these failure swings up here. Right, look left on the 4-hour chart. This loads. We have these highs up here on the S&P. And we have these relative equal highs as well. If we see a wick form in here, it's not a terrible framework. Like I said, we have to see this asset reverse in here, right? The one that took the low. And I have to see that YM doesn't want to trade into this internal. Now we take out that 4-hour low here as well on the YM. Like I said, more than likely we'll just see YM trade into this gap before we do anything else today. Keep this 4-hour low marked out. ES here looks to be holding this consolidation. If it doesn't break this SMT, we're holding this premium divergence, this range. Again, the weekly internal, and then of course these failure swings on the ES are very interesting to me. So we should see this gap here on YM. Watch how we interact with the range low here on ES. There's that gap, which is important for us to see before we go higher on the Dow. We want to see that. All you can see is that NASDAQ is starting to form its wick here, right? See if ES also wants to take out this 4-hour low. Why not short? Because I'm pretty bullish on the daily candle. This would just be a scalp. Trading YM lower would just be a scalp up in here. Like this inversion would be the first entry I could take with my model. It would be a scalp down to these lows, which is just above 1 hour. It's not terrible. Just not interested in it personally. I'd rather trade long from this. It's a good double purge candidate here. If NASDAQ doesn't reverse here, I'd be targeting these lows today. So if NASDAQ fails to reverse at this 4-hour low, my eye would draw into these lows down here. We have to hold this EQ. Very important that we hold this EQ here on NASDAQ. I indeed will wait for confirmation. I would never just mark it long here. Yeah. Need to see NASDAQ reverse. Has to form a wick in here. You can see we have this 15-minute candle run above previous day high here on the YM, right? That could be the trigger for us to sell off. And like I said, if NASDAQ fails to reverse at this low, my eye is drawing into the range low here. We have relative equal lows, right? Down here. Just take a look at these higher time frame candles. Look at this 8 a.m. candle. The manipulation, right, is previous day high. That's the sequence for us to go lower here. And we fail to reverse at this previous 6-hour low, then this is the next draw, right? It's just relative equal lows. Here on the S&P as well, it's relative equal lows. The only issue with that is that the daily doesn't really support that, right? Daily, just in a continuation, especially on this asset. But again, this is you can see we're stacked with the weekly open here on the ES. If I was to draw out my weekly open, you see what I mean by that. We're not really displacing from the weekly open here on the S&P or the NASDAQ, really. It's really the Dow Jones, which gave us its expansion away from the weekly open. So if we look at a weekly candle, right, this here is more of a consolidation candle. Clearly a consolidation candle in here. Right? This just flipped the open. You can see that as bearish. Whereas this candle here is very unlikely to flip all the way back to the open, right? You can see ES here is forming a continuation towards these lows. So again, this draw for NASDAQ for me becomes more interesting. It's relative equal lows, right? If I don't see NASDAQ reverse here, that's where I'm going to be trading towards. You can see EQ of this range, right, as a potential draw for our Dow as well into here. %50 is right here inside this gap. Right. Looking at maybe this day offering some sort of retracement from this low to this high, internal. This asset fails to reverse near EQ, can offer the lows. So you can see ES is about to break this SMT here. Dow is trading lower. I'm seeing a strength switch of NASDAQ. So I'm going to get a gap. I'm looking for a continuation in this gap, potentially lower. can see this expanding towards EQ here. And this again could be a trigger, right, for us to trade lower. I would just need to see a gap printed away from this high. And you can see I'd like to see some sort of continuation sequence now. There's no gap printed in here. You can see how this is delivering. You can see in here is a very obvious gap, right? So for me, this is the level I'm interested in. This is delivering away from an external high, or a paired high. So the market looks like this, right? And we're order pairing these levels, whereas this, right, puts an SMT up here and creates a gap. So if I can wait for that gap to be filled in, it's ideal. See, clearly we're manipulating the low here on ES as well, right? I said to be patient now, wait for someone to give me an invalidation, or else my invalidation is all the way up here. And it's too high in the range for me to take a trade with my invalidation up there. There's no higher time frame bearish SMT. We just formed it. On the open, the 9 a.m. candle. It is consecutive candle SMT right in here. You can see here, 930 runs above the range high here on the YM, manipulates previous day. Right. So we consolidated, we ran above, we put in a failure swing, we manipulate here. So we form a little bit of a two-stage here, like this. It's hard to see, but it looks like this. Now I have expansion away from that. We've invalidated this gap. My framework would then be looking for continuations. Looking for like some sort of measured move of this manipulation. It gets me into these relative, like I see all of these lows here also as pretty low resistance. You look at a higher time frame chart. Yesterday, the way we expanded, we left these failure swings, right? Look at this down here. Right, failure swings here as well. Even the range low on Monday, failure swings. And again, this weekly candle for me on these assets at least, right? Couldn't flip. Now, you can see here, it's a large wick to trade against. So don't be targeting somewhere in this wick. Look at where this 2 and 2.5 deviations is. It's in this wick, right? And maybe the previous day high SMT trigger is what we're using. And we'll see. We'll see if we get a continuation lower. It's kind of hard to fade the bullish order flow at the moment. We clearly have been trading higher towards the ultimate. So 10 a.m. does when we open, right? close back above this previous candle, C2 candle in a key level, right? If we close below this level for continuations, look decent, right? Especially we're watching this equilibrium. I would need to see NASDAQ here reverse, right? Given the deepest retracement into the range. If not, this is just looking like continuation signatures forming. I have a very, very obvious gap here that I can look to see if I get any continuation from. Trading this 30-minute candle as a continuation, right? So we've come into this 4-hour low here. I'm keeping this 4-hour low here on my chart. See how we close in relation to it. We close back in the range, especially on ES. But again, this is looking more like a continuation signature. Okay, so now I have a 30-minute candle. I have a gap near the opening price. So I'm studying the opening price, this next 30-minute candle. If it wants to form a wick and then expand, it's going to form a wick in here. And you can see there's going to be that gap right in there. That's that level. I mean, look at this, right? If it opens, the only place it can form its wick is here. Look at these higher time frame candles, right? We're now looking at trade 10 a.m. as a continuation potentially. I have this song stuck in my head from yesterday. I think it's called Under Control. Like Calvin Harris. I might be anyone. Y'all know that song. Shut up. Back in the day? Yeah. I didn't even realize I was humming it until you pointed it out. Not Like Us by Drake. True. It's Calvin Harris, guys. Life was simpler back then. So this looks like we're failing to reverse off this 4-hour low here, especially on the NASDAQ, right? Deep range below equilibrium right now. So now I'm watching. I guess we can still mark out this closure. It's going to be important, right? S&P, see if it closes back in the range. But I don't assume it will. So now for me, it's as simple as waiting for the gap, right? The gap in here is going to be a nice continuation framework. This is just consolidation, right? So the lowest I'd want to trade this asset is to EQ as a retracement, right? And then maybe we'll see something like that. This asset, I can definitely take out that range low. So now I have 10 a.m., new 4-hour candle opening, right? Now I want to see open high. This is that previous 4-hour low. Mark that out. This is a 4-hour low inside of a gap for YM. Yeah, so where I'd like to see this wick form is inside this gap, right? Right, looking for this candle to open high, form its wick, and then trade away from that. Now you can see we're actually opening, right, in the context of this SysD. So 10 a.m. opens right here. We have all these failure swings, right? We have this opposing sequence right here. So it could leave this breakaway gap based on how this candle opens with this redistributed area of price, right? Look at this 15-minute candle. Sell side, right? Buy side, and then we have engulfing sell side from that gap. We could leave this as a redistributed area of price in here. Let's keep a vertical, horizontal line like this for 10. So I'm seeing YM stay weak, right? The major liquidity for YM is obviously down here, below the weekly open. I'll mark out this previous 4-hour low with the red. We'll make EQ green just so we know what we're looking at in the higher time frame. Okay, this green line is just EQ of this higher time frame range. Just so no one is confused. I have lots of things on my chart, right? So if I was to get some continuation, right, away from this opposing run on NASDAQ towards this relevant low, I would also take a continuation here without seeing the gap repriced. Only because I'm seeing this signature on the 50-minute chart where we have this engulfing body. So this wick and this body is that 5-minute SysD you're seeing right here. Okay, look. See this? We run up and then we trade lower into the open of 10. That's that SysD you're seeing right here. So this area of price is interesting. This is just retracing here. You can see this is not a reversal signature. It's a retracement signature, which I like. And you can notice that by this failure swing formation and the lack of displacement. We're not V'ing higher. There's no gaps. It's chopping higher, right? So even if it comes into here, you can see something like I've been trading almost 5 years. I've been trading ICT concepts for over 3 years. Trading in general since 2020 though, almost. But yeah, ICT, 3 years. Since like 2022. Took me a good 3-ish or more years to become profitable. I didn't make any money before 3 years, I would say. Took me a long time. I mean, that's how long it takes. It's like going to school. I don't do crypto, no. I trade index futures. I invest long term in like the index futures market, like ETFs. Buy SPY. It's actually long term. Get rid of this green line for now. If we can keep it on the chart, you guys can see EQ. Gotta wait and see if we get some reaction off this gap, right? I don't want to be entering the market here. I want to be shorting the S&P here, potentially in the 50-minute close. If we get a 5-minute changes day delivery here, and this 15-minute candle closes an up close candle on NASDAQ, I'm going to short the S&P. I got to see a 5-minute 60 and the 50-minute candle close, though, as a PSP. Right now, we just swept out that previous 4-hour low, right? See that? So we swept out this previous 4-hour low. Let me get rid of this for a second so I can show you. We swept out the previous 4-hour low, which I have marked out right here. We could see price come back into this range. That's why the 5-minute 60 is important to see. I think at this point in time, I'm not going to short this candle, obviously. This closure doesn't support that. It supports more of a retracement back into these highs. And to see if we pair off this 4-hour low and we retrace internal. Again, I'm not seeing a reversal here at these lows. So I'm looking for continuation clearly still. And that's just from lack of a V-shaped recovery down here. This is a continuation signature. A YM, you can see, right, after diverging this previous candle low, the S&P. Forms a reversal candle. Opens in context of a change in state of delivery right here, 10:15. Trade into these highs potentially. These markets are still quite weak though. Right, so we have a run above this 4-hour low, or run below the 4-hour low, sorry. We have a small gap that we're trading into here on the S&P that we talked about. So if we fail to manipulate the 4-hour low and we respect the gap, this is a continuation sequence, right? Nasdaq or ES would be the only assets I short though. And it might be once Nasdaq YM comes in and takes out this high, right? With this opposing run. Sweeps out this high. YM is just consolidating for me. Like I'm not really interested in trading YM as it's consolidating here. Okay. To get to weekly ERL, I'd have to see these assets reverse, and these assets are forming continuation swings potentially inside of equilibrium, right? Lower. So this looks promising in the short term higher, but I'm not really interested unless I see these two assets reverse like this. Okay. It's been a tough month. Lots of people have been losing. This current 30-minute candle opens low. So I'm going to see if we can create a gap, right? If not, I might have to trade a continuation higher on this asset once these assets reverse. Say we do something like this. With SMT twice, right? Then I can look to trade this asset higher. But again, I need to see this asset reverse before I do any of that. This is a good, if you're thinking reversal higher, it's a good first foundation, right? Consecutive candle SMT on the 4-hour chart. Small, shallow run below that 4-hour low inside the gap on YM, right? It's more important. It's inside this gap. It's hard to fade the YM higher time frame order flow for sure. You don't want to be really shorting this asset. Again, if you look at this asset in relation to its weekly open, which is here, we're really just consolidating. We haven't really, like, this is the weekly open. Right? This is the weekly open on YM here. Expanded away from it. I mean, look at the daily candle at the moment, right? You have wicks on both sides. It's a doji here on YM. The more important thing is I'm not seeing this asset reverse. I need to see this asset show me something like that. Then I could get involved, right? In a continuation higher. Right now, I don't want to be touching anything. I don't want to go low here. I don't want to go high here because we're just, both sides are getting chopped up in this range. Look at the daily open, guys. We haven't moved from the daily open, right? YM is at the daily open. If you look at a daily candle, it looks like this right now. Okay? This is seek and destroy. Both sides of the range have been offered. We have these large wicks on either side. Not where I want to be engaging price. So this 15-minute candle closes, right? 15-minute candle closes a PSP. I have SMT in this gap. All right. Let's look at their lower time frame and see if I have a reversal signature. It's not a bad V shape. All right. Look at the 15-minute candle. It closes in 5 minutes, by the way. 10:30 is open, right? We formed that at PSP here. We flip the opening price. Got these swings below. For failure swings here on NASDAQ, right? Oh my goodness. Well, there it goes. All right. Didn't even wait for the close. Look at this. That 4-hour low, right, is no longer relevant for me. I know we're going to break that. So, again, you can see we formed that wick here. Now, if NASDAQ fails to manipulate this low, right, the next low is this relevant low down here. Previous day low. Does that SMT fill? I'm looking for this other side of the range here for sure. If this candle closes a PSP, I can get involved. It's my 2-stage. If it's a single divergence, that's fine. I can trade a continuation of the next 15-minute candle, next 30-minute candle, essentially. Let's see how it closes, right? Interesting, right? We take out this 4-hour low on NASDAQ. Look at this. Sweep this 4-hour low. Now we sweep out this previous candle low. I could look to get long here on the YM actually. Right, look at this. We have SMT forming here. And we have SMT forming here. Now I'm seeing a strength switch with these assets start to reverse. I might take this on the YM on this closure. Didn't get the closure there. If I get the gap respected and we start to expand higher, I'll take it on this 30 minutes. This is looking like a nice V shape. See if we respect this gap. We have this 5-minute down close candle, this 2-stage which I'm framing it off of, right? I also just like YM forming that 2-stage swing in here and the 4-hour gap, right? This asset reverses here after taking out this hourly low too. We'll see. See if I get some reaction out of here. Previous 30-minute high. I'm going to take YM on this 4-minute closure if it closes. Did it close? I'm going to take YM, guys. Risk to low. I'm targeting my first draw is going to be the high. I'll go break even here, and I'm just going to hold for the other side of the range. So I'm in long on the YM on the Dow Jones, looking for that high currently of the current New York candle, where I will go for a break-even function, and then I'm going to be holding. You guys can see my screen, right? There you go. So I'm holding. I'm going to go break even at this high, but then I'm holding actually for a range. Like I'm holding for like something higher. Now there's not much. There's this, so we can use some. If we do get up there, right? If we do get all the way up here, we can use some standard deviations or something. Or you can just take like, you know, a defined, predefined risk to reward. there's really nothing on this chart besides the weekly ERL, right? So there's literally nothing to look for besides these highs. But again, it might not expand all the way there today. Maybe retest this order block. I'm just trying to find any sort of high or low. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that level as a TP. It's around 2R. Sure. I got to hop off stream, though, because 10:30, been an hour and a half. So I'm going to take this, somewhere in here. But this is the higher time frame draw. We'll see if we get that reversal off the 4-hour lows. My stop loss right now, you can see, is this 4-hour low, essentially. If you look where your stop loss is being placed. It's this intermediate low that's formed as a 2-stage off the 4-hour low. So if you look at the other assets, NASDAQ and the YM and the ES make lower lows right here up this 4-hour imbalance we're in on the YM. So I'm going to keep my stop loss there, not the 4-hour low, but it's the same logic, right? 2-stage logic. I'm looking to see if we can just trade from internal to external. Maybe this can be a significant low for the day. Again, I'm getting a reversal signature inside the gap with the asset I want to see trading higher. So that's our logic. We'll see. Right now, ES is definitely the strongest asset. We'll see if YM shifts strength back eventually. So I'm going to put my stop loss in. I'm going to set that and forget it. And I'll keep you guys updated. I'll post on Twitter later the outcome of this trade. Okay? Awesome, guys. I hope you learned something on stream today. We waited pretty patiently for this one. So let's see what happens. Here is the TP SL break-even level. Okay? Okay, cool. See you guys all on Monday. Peace.